So there she is again, my wind turbine. You can see right there, I have a little extra extension cord hanging off the side in case I need the extra. From that turbine at the top, I gutted out the guts of it, so I have no voltage regulator, no diodes. It is literally just a magnet on the rotor and the stator. So it puts out three-phase alternating current all the way down the pole and into side there. And inside is where I change from AC to DC. The reason I do this is because of voltage drop. DC voltage does not like to travel long distances. So keeping it three-phase AC as long as you could go is more efficient because alternating current travels further. I want to go over a little bit on the guide wires. Learn from my mistake. Go heavy on the guide wires. I previously had, I think it was 3/16 steel cable, and have upgraded to 1/4 inch and 5/16. The reason for that is when the winds are blowing very strong on that entire pole, the wind turbine and its blades, what happened to me is that a guide wire snapped and pretty much made a slingshot effect from the top part of the pole. The pole broke, the old pole that is, broke right here, and the entire thing flew all the way down over to here onto my old shed that was sitting here on its time. At that time, crashed through the roof, broke all my blades, trashed everything. About $300 down the drain. I have a few pictures of that. I will insert them into this video as well. This is going to be my second build of a wind turbine with bought blades. Ways to choose what type of blades and how many blades is you have to think of how much wind you have in your area, how much open space, how many trees do you have around. Come on, focus, there you go. How many trees do you have around that may block wind? So the more blades you have, it'll catch more wind, of course. It will start up in lower winds easier than smaller or fewer blades. But you will lose some speed. So you got to try to find a happy medium. This one here is I believe this is an 11 blade. The one I have up there is a 5 blade, but the blades are much larger. I believe that one is my happy medium. I got those blades from Missouri Wind and Solar. And the bracket system that the alternator mounts to, I got also from Missouri Wind and Solar. Everything else I built myself. The tail section. And I will insert some videos of that so you can see it when it's down on the ground when I was putting it up. My pole setup is that I have 2 telephone poles sandwiching the tamarack. There is 2 1-inch solid steel dowels that run through at 2 points on the pole. This one stays in it indefinitely. It is my pivot. This one is just serving as a lock to lock it upright. The reason I say it pivots is because that guide wire there goes over to this oak tree, which I have a pulley system and a hand crank winch. So I can raise and lower my turbine by hand. This is my homemade PVC pipe wind turbine blades. And what I do here, in this case, this one is 4 foot tall. I take a PVC pipe and I cut it into 4 sections, as even as possible. And then I take those 4 sections, so what you're left with is 1/4 of a pipe, and you cut it diagonally. And that would be this edge of the blade, diagonally. You see the paint coming off on that one, and the mounting holes. They catch wind, they work well, except for when you get way too big of a gust of wind. Then what ends up happening is that the wind pushes on this so tough that the blades curl back, so when they come around, they end up slapping the pole, and then they shatter to pieces. The hub that I mounted that to, I believe, was a 1/4 inch plate steel. I have successfully made a hub from an old saw blade. They will work too. They are just a little flimsier. So I think if you have your hub out away from your pole, like if you had a longer shaft on your alternator, this method would probably do a lot better. I think if I could find something like PVC that was cheap and easy to shape, but really strong, I'd have myself a winner, and I'd be saving myself a lot of money on wind turbine blades. To get this balanced, like if I had 7 blades, what I would do is on a concrete floor set down a blade balancer on the ground that balances lawnmower blades, and I would set the center of the hub on the blade balancer, and then I would take things such as wheel weights. You can get clip-on side ones that would clip on the rims. You can put them on the sides, or maybe you could just put on the back side of them, or the front side, either or. Stick-on wheel weights, and then you can use that until you finally find your balance on your blades. I might try this again when I figure out myself another wind turbine, like another 3rd project or so. So that is that one. Let's move on to the next. So this is the Delco 10 SI, SI standing for self-exciting alternator. This is what I based my wind turbine off of. And I will show you a bit of the components inside. Some you can keep or some you can discard and use some other components. So this here is the shaft. That's what the pulley mounts to, or in my case the turbine blade assembly. The shaft has two sets of claws, which has some copper windings on the inside. This is what gives the magnetic field within the stator. This is the stator. This one is a very tiny one off a cheap turbine. I'll show a little more of that in a little bit. Here we have the diodes, or in this case this set has these diodes here, and the white component is called the voltage regulator. This is what keeps voltages down to a safe charging level. The diodes is what changes the three-phase AC down to DC voltage and prevents voltage leak backwards since it's a diode. Over here is the back of the alternator. You have one bearing sitting here. Here's the front of the case. The main bearing I do not have right in this one. This is the retainer for that bearing. The front of it. These two things are stators. This one comes out of a stock 10 SI alternator, and this is out of an actual wind turbine. So this here is why wind turbines do not do so well when they do not provide you with the correct copper. As you can see there's very few windings, and the windings are large. You do not want that for a wind turbine. Granted, they will put out a lot of amperage, but you will need a whole lot of speed, a lot of RPMs in order to get anything out of this. When you put a lot more copper in it and the windings are finer, and the finer the better, the more voltage they will put out. So you will have more wattage at a lower RPM, lower speed. As you can see here, there is 3 leads coming off a stator. There's 3 separate windings. When an alternator puts out its power from this stator, it is 3-phase AC, alternating current. So it is the job of this here, this diode, to change it to DC. You can see the wind turbine brushes. I prefer brushless if I can. On some models on eBay, you can get some that have just a large donut magnet, which will excite these claws. The wind turbine I'm using right now does not use these. Instead, it is more or less like this one. The magnets on the one that's up on the pole are probably 6 times larger than that. The magnets do not run this way on that one. They run this way. They're about yay long, and they're slightly slanted to prevent cogging. Cogging is when you turn this, you'll feel the magnetic fields catch throughout the stator. The less cogging you have, the better startup at lower wind speeds you will have. The 10SI stator, the alternator, has the ground there on the back of the case. And this is the power, or the positive. On these alternators, you do not need power to this to make power. You do not need to excite the copper within these claws. The copper that's in it and the claws have what they call a residual magnetic field. So when this starts spinning up, it excites these coils even more. So eventually you'll have a fake magnetic field in there, or technically a real one, that excites everything. So it's called SI, self-exciting. These alternators are very popular for farmers with older tractors that change things to 12 volts. A lot of classic cars use these because they're very popular and very easy to get. They are inexpensive. So that's what I based my wind turbine off of, since there's a lot of sellers out there on eBay and Amazon that sell different types of wind turbine stuff for these alternators. When they sell you a hub, which you mount your blades to, the hub diameter for the shaft is usually made for that. I don't know if I left anything out of this. I know I'm going to, but I hope this explains a little bit on my wind turbine itself. And I got more to come, so stay tuned. This is my main wind turbine charge controller. This is my backup. On this side, as I was speaking about before, 3-phase AC comes into the charge controller. That's the extension cord that runs up the pole. This charge controller converts it to 2 wires, DC, positive, negative. I've explained in another video that these will blink. Blink, blink, blink. Once it rotates through the phases, blink, 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 blink. When it's turning slow, you will see them individually blink. When they spin really fast, all 3 of those dots will seem like they're solid green. Right now you can see my voltage is quite low. I'll have to start my generator. When this voltage gets up to 14.5, I believe, maybe 14.8, this light will come on. And basically what that is doing, it is turning on, let's say, an electronic braking system, which basically puts the brakes on up there at the turbine. And it really slows it down and sometimes stops it. That way it prevents overcharging of your batteries. On some systems, rather than having shunting, they have the leads going to a coiled resistor and a relay system. So there's this relay system that senses when the voltage is too high, and this relay will trip and divert the electricity to the resistor coil instead of to the batteries. And all that does is burn off your extra energy that you are making. I prefer the shunting method. I don't know if I would trust a hot resistor in some areas. On this one you can see your 3-phase AC. Oh, look it, it's going. Having a little burst of wind here because it wasn't going earlier. You can see the lights are almost solid green because it's spinning so fast now. Anyways, 3-phase AC into here. And there's your negative and your positive. This is your very, very basic controller. I have not used it. I cannot give any reviews whether how well it works or not. So that's that part of it. Let's bring you on to the next thing. For those who have a charge controller already, but wish to remain your current at 3-phase AC from your turbine down to your controller, but don't have anything to change it from 3-phase AC to your DC voltage, I recommend this little gizmo here. You can find them all over the internet, Amazon, eBay. This is a rectifier. As you can see, there's 3 prongs in the back. That's your 3-phase AC input. You can put any lead at any position. It does not matter which one goes where in a 3-phase AC. You'll be safe to put them at any 3 at any order. And this is your DC side, which then you can take this unit, mount it here by your 3-phase AC, and then your DC wires can go to your charge controller, and then your DC charge controller will take care of the rest. So this part of the video is going to be why I say stay away from cheap wind turbines. They do not work. This one I got off of eBay for maybe like 80 bucks. I like the design, I like the shell, but let me point out some differences. So let's begin with the center of it. This is the shaft off of a 10 SI alternator. This is what comes in this turbine here. As you can see, this is the front where the threaded part is. And you can see there is absolutely no rear at all. So on the Dalco alternator, you have 2 bearings supporting the weight of the blade system. And in that one, you do not have a rear. It solely relies on 1 bearing up there at the front. That is not good. Another thing I want to tell you is even though the stator that came in this is very nice, the magnets that they put in it are super tiny. This turbine does not put out any wattage at any speed. It is garbage. It does not work. See, there's the bearing for the back of that. I'm going to try to utilize this stator for something. It'd be great if I could find a claw system that would go into this one that was smaller, because the Dalco one is just too big to go inside that one. I'm going to have to figure out something to go in the back there to put in a rear bearing support. I think I might have a winning combination off that stator if I can. So there you have it. Stay away from cheap turbines. Take my word for it, they do not work. They will not put out power because they don't have crap for magnets that will put out any power. When putting up a wind turbine and putting your guide wires to it, here's a couple helpful things that you will need when setting that up. These are crimpable cable ties, and these are for tightening your cable. You can turn this and it cinches it down to tighten your wires up really nice. I have used and still do use some U-bolt style clamps as well.